Hey everybody. My name is Amanda. Most of you already know that. I have been asked several times to do my personal testimony as a woman to other women on YouTube and actually share it in my group. So I've been putting it off for like a year now. Especially also since May, since I actually opened my business. Sorry. And I have actually been putting it off because I thought that when I did the video, I was going to do it all extravagant and I was going to be dressed up nicely and makeup done perfectly. But as you know, when the Lord speaks to you to do something, you do it and be obedient, or you're going to feel pretty bad until you do. So, today I was busy back here in my boutique, rolling leggings and doing stuff. I'm in my pajamas and no makeup or anything. And it was like, do your video. And I'm like, not right now. I'm not ready to do the video. I don't have any makeup on or anything. And it was like, do it like you are. And I'm like, I don't think so. And I was very pressed to do this video today. So I'm going to jump right into it because I don't know how much phone storage my phone actually has for video. So I'm going to try to make this as short as possible. It's going to be a little bit lengthy because I'm going to start from like when I was younger all the way up to my recent like testimony. But I want you guys to know what I went through as a young adult to make me who I was 10 years ago. And who I am now. So, first of all, when I was 7 years old, I know a lot of you have dealt with this. A lot of you keep it bottled up inside and don't tell people about this and have never talked about it, but you can. And it is okay. And it is also okay to forgive those that have done this to you. Um, because I have. And I know that it is very freeing. Because if the Lord's going to forgive you and the Lord's going to heal you of it, you have got to learn to forgive. No matter what it is for. But when I was 7 years old, I was molested by my sister's dad. From that point on, I lived back and forth from my mom to my grandmother's. When I was 12 years old, I moved back, 13 years old, I moved back in with my mother permanently because my grandfather had passed away. And she immediately started letting me date 18-year-old boys. Go figure. Well, that kind of escalated from there. Just dating 18-year-old boys went from just dating to, you guessed it, having sex. Because I craved the attention of men. I didn't get attention at home. Um, I had probably been a non-virgin for about 2 months when I lied one weekend about where I was at and what I was doing with a friend of mine who was a little bit older. Um, we went to a party at her boyfriend's house. I was raped twice that weekend by two separate men. The first one told me that he bought and paid for me to her through her boyfriend. Like I was there for a reason. Like she brought me there because she was supposed to. Um, some friend, but I have forgiven her over the years. And then the second one was actually somebody that I thought I could trust and that I had had a crush on for a while and that I could confide in. But he was so high on acid and there was no stopping anything. And so to keep my mouth shut and to keep me from telling anybody what happened, the girl went back to school and told everybody that I literally slept with 3 people that weekend for the fun of it. And pretty much ruined me for school. Like that ruined me, period. I ended up quitting school when I was 15 years old, basically, because of that. Like I couldn't stand being at school. I was talked about. I was trash. I was basically the town whore. Um, Literally, when I was 17 years old, there were old men sitting at the town cafe making up stories about me if they hadn't seen me in a week. You could literally go in there and ask about me and they would tell you something. Yes, I was that popular. Um, you could probably go in there today and somebody would still tell you a story about me that probably isn't true. But because I don't even live there anymore, they're probably still wondering what I'm doing. But that's how bad it was. And they would just make up stories about me, so I figured whatever. So I started skipping school. I would leave with whoever would come pick me up. Most of the time it was a grown man. I'd go stay stoned. I remember on Gene Robertson's pool table. He's passed away now. He killed himself a long time ago. I'd go stay stoned on his pool table. Um, him and his girlfriend, they took good care of me when I was in school. They took care of me when I was high. They didn't let anybody bother me. I trusted them. Um, but yeah, that's how I spent my time. And then when I was 16, I was going to get engaged just to move out of my mom's house. Or 15, I got engaged just to move out of my mom's house because I couldn't stand living there anymore. And I decided I couldn't see myself with that man forever. And then when I was 16 on spring break, my mom calls me to tell me that if I don't come home, she's going to leave and move without me. So, anyways, I come home. I moved to Waco with her. And I don't want to live there because that is where my sister's dad lives, the one that molested me and tried to kidnap me. And I wanted nothing to do with being in the same town with him. So I moved back home to our house that my actual Social Security check paid for this house, and I lived there. And I met my oldest daughter's dad, and we stayed together off and on until I was 21. But when we were off, I was bad, like horrible. At one point, I was a full blown alcoholic at the age of 17 years old. I did not eat anything for 3 weeks, but I drank a lot. Um, I fell off the porch. I bruised several ribs and my kidneys and ended up having to stay in the hospital until I gained like 2 pounds because I hadn't eaten anything and had lost a lot of weight because I was an alcoholic, my alcohol level. I did try to commit suicide when I was 13 because I hated myself again. I didn't like who I was. I was sleeping around with men. The only attention that I got from men was not the good kind. I hated who I was. I hated myself. I didn't want to live anymore. I took several handfuls of pills and ended up in the hospital getting my stomach pumped. And then when I was 17, me and my oldest daughter's dad split up. When I was 16, I drank a whole bottle of vodka and took another handful of pills and ended up back in the hospital getting my stomach pumped again. They were going to leave me in the hospital that time, but I refused to stay. If I wasn't going to die, I wasn't going to stay there. I just wanted them to let me die, but they were going to detain me because I was threatening to leave and try again. So finally, I got my crap together and they let me leave. When I was 17, my oldest daughter's dad and I split up for a little while. And I was staying at my cousin's house and I took another bottle of pills and drank 2 bottles of wine on top of it. And they found me on the couch unconscious. And back to the hospital it was. And again, there I was when I was 17. I fell off the porch, ended up in the hospital because I hadn't eaten anything in Lord knows how long. and my blood alcohol content was I don't even remember what it was, but it was higher than like any grown man's should ever be. I could not function, and they finally let me leave. I had to go see a judge, and when I was then fast forward, we stayed together till I got pregnant with my daughter, and I stopped drinking, stopped doing everything. That saved my life, basically. That was God's way of saying you need to stop doing what you're doing. And we stayed together till I was 21, and off and on. We did have a breakup there where I got pregnant with my son, and he ended up having a daughter with somebody else. But fast forward to we split up, where he leaves, and I'm a single mother of 2 kids. And my sister lives with me. I'm 21 years old, almost 22. And I meet this man, and he's married. And I think he's gonna, I fall in love, whatever you want to call it. And I think he's gonna leave his wife for me. And I end up pregnant. So that's when I found out that he wasn't gonna leave his wife for me. And so I did something that I don't believe in. I don't believe there's a reason for it. There's not an excuse for it. You can't give me an excuse for it, and there's no excuse for me to do it. But I did. I went and had an abortion. They did an ultrasound. Supposedly everything was good to go. I had to ride with a lady to Houston. Sometimes my memory is a little bit fuzzy. I had to ride with a lady to Houston to a clinic where they did the abortion. And at that time, they did one where it was actually like suctioning and they left you awake. And something went wrong at some point, and I felt a pain. And I sat up on the bed. And when I sat up, it was like a labor push. And when I sat up, I pushed what was left of a baby out. And it was enough. Like, it was a baby. Like, its skin was transparent. You could see its little veins and all that stuff, but you could see its eyes, and it was like looking at me, like looking straight through me. And they had to sedate me. They had to keep me there longer than what they were supposed to. And I really needed to get home to the kids that I had. And so the lady, she took me home. She offered me counseling. She offered me to go once a week to talk about this with other people and just deal with it. And all I wanted to do was just forget about it. I wanted to pretend like it never happened. I don't believe in this. I don't think anybody should ever have done this. I hated myself. I felt like God had punished me right then on that table. This is your punishment. You're going to have to deal with this for the rest of your life. So you committed murder. That's you. You're a murderer. And that's what was going through my mind. So I went home, and I could barely even look the 2 kids that I had in the face. My sister helped me take care of my kids. I got to where I couldn't sleep. If I closed my eyes, I could see that baby's face. If I went to sleep, I heard a baby crying like the whole time. It would just wake me up. I was literally losing my mind, like literally losing my mind. And I worked 2 jobs. I worked at a Mexican restaurant during the day, and I was an entertainment director for a little bar that was local. And I had just met my first husband, and it was pretty bad. Like, the not sleeping and everything was pretty bad. And my sister was like, something is wrong. We've got to help you, whatever. And so she told a friend, and he came over one day and he was like, here, take this, and it will help you deal with not being able to sleep and the nightmares you've been having and stuff like that. And it was a little black pill. I didn't know what was in it. I just took it. And sure enough, it helped. I was awake for 3 days. I went to visit my new boyfriend, which was going to be my future husband. I went to visit him. We rode horses. We had a good time. I came home. I was cleaning the house. When I finally crashed and burned, I slept so hard that I did not hear a baby crying. I did not see, I didn't see the baby looking back at me when I closed my eyes. And what it did was it dulled my senses and my emotions to the point where I didn't feel them anymore. I was numb to everything. So, that was how I wanted it to be. So I went back to him and I'm like, okay, I need some more of that. So for a little while, he kept giving me the little black pill. And then when me and my first husband actually started dating, I quit taking that, but it was getting to the point where I was going crazy again. And so we would split up. We would be off and on, off and on, off and on. And when we were off, I was off doing drugs. And when we were on, I would be all right. And at one point when we were off, I got way off. Learned how to smoke it, learned how to snort it, learned how to cut it up, learned how to bag it, weigh it, sell it. I got really deep into it and learned a lot. And then when we got back together, we ended up getting married because I thought that was going to help me get my oldest. I had lost custody of my oldest daughter during all this mess. And because of the drugs. And we got married for the wrong reasons. And during our marriage, right before I had my youngest daughter, I did get saved. And when I got saved, I got baptized in the Holy Spirit. I forgave everybody that had ever hurt me. Like truly, truly forgave. I forgave the men that raped me. I forgave my sister's dad for molesting me. I forgave all those men that mistreated me, that used me and just tossed me to the side. I forgave my mother for abandoning me and not taking care of me. I forgave everybody. And then I had to forgive myself. And I had to release myself from the chains of that abortion. I did have a nervous breakdown at some point about the abortion, and I released myself. I didn't release myself. I had to forgive myself, but God released me from those chains. He broke those chains that were holding me to that. And when I realized that He didn't punish me that day on that table, that I was punishing myself, that I was the one being hard on myself, that it was all me, that it wasn't Him. And it was just Satan using that thing over and over and over again to hold me down every day. But when I got saved and I gave that thing to God, that abortion that caused me to do the drugs, that was my excuse to start that addiction. It was like a weight was just lifted off of me, like a ton of bricks. And I gave it to God, and God forgave me for that abortion. I forgave myself. He had already forgiven me a long time ago. He forgave me for it when it happened. I just needed to give it to Him. So if you have ever had an abortion, or if you are thinking about having an abortion, or it's not an easy thing to do, but if you have had one and you're dealing with the same emotions, or anything similar, just give it to God. He can deliver you from that. Um but that was the beginning of my drug addiction. That was my excuse for doing the drugs. When me and my first ex-husband split up, I went right back to what I knew. Even though I was saved, I got right back on the drugs. So far on the drugs that when we got divorced and the judge gave me like 6 chances to take a drug test to get joint custody of my daughter, I couldn't. I just couldn't make myself. I just couldn't do it. And then I married my second husband. We got clean for about a year. Little did he know that like 8 months out of that year, I was never really clean. I continued to do drugs. I didn't shoot it. I didn't put a needle in my arm, but I continued to do the drugs to maintain weight loss. But I was still doing it. I had been doing it for months. He just didn't know about it. So when we got separated, I told him about it. We separated for other reasons, but I came clean. You know, I told him about it. But when we finally separated and I got with the man that I am married to now, I went straight off the deep end. I had made connections over the years with some really heavy people and got in it with my husband now, and we got in way over our heads. Gunfights, shootouts, kicking people's doors in, stealing, you name it, we did it. We were not good people. Not good people at all. If you had seen us 10 years ago, I look back now and want to know how in the world did I survive? I should be dead. Bullets flying by my head while I'm playing a stupid game on my phone. I should be dead. Shooting up dope that I don't even know who made it or where it came from or what's in it on the daily, 3 or 4 times a day. I should be dead. Literally, let me tell you, literally, kidnapping a dope man, taking his truck, holding somebody hostage in a closet at gunpoint when I don't even know how to use a freaking gun. Let me tell you who I was. I was a horrible, horrible person. You would not have wanted to be around me 10 years ago. Nobody wanted to be around me 10 years ago. But the drugs had me. And they had me bad. But that was my own choice. But we did. I don't know how we were survived other than by the grace of God. But one day we decided that we needed to leave there or we were going to end up dead or in prison. And there was no work. Like, if we were going to get clean, there was no work. Nobody was going to hire us. Nobody was going to hire us. Nobody. So we left. We bought a car with 2 grams of dope. Honestly, it's a $200 car. But we didn't pay cash for it. And we just left. And we drove. We were in a little town in South Texas, and the mosquitoes were eating me up one night, and I told him to just drive. And the next morning we woke up in Louisiana. That's when I realized that we were really for real leaving Texas. And we did. We left Texas, and the minute we left, God took care of us every step of the way. He fed us. We had no money. We had nothing but the clothes on our backs and nothing. We followed a rainbow one day, and it led us to a church. We hadn't eaten in 2 days, and it led us to a church who put gas in our car and gave us food to eat. I have pictures of that food. He cooked in a copper pot on the side of the road at a rest stop. He made macaroni, spaghetti out of macaroni and cheese and canned sauce with the food that we got from that church. I will never forget. Those were the most freeing days of my life. And the reason why they are the most freeing is because those were the days that God was freeing me. Because when we left Texas, I did the last bit of my dope on Mother's Day 2009, right before we left Texas. As we were leaving Texas, we were sobering up. And we haven't looked back. And our little trip that took us, we made it to Benton, Kentucky the long way. We went from Texas all the way around the Gulf to Florida, and then from Florida all the way up that coastline to South Carolina, and from South Carolina to the Virginias, and from Virginia to West Virginia, and we got landlocked. But God took care of us every step of the way. He even had a little black lady take us in her home and feed us and let us have a place to sleep for a couple of nights while Judd did some work on her car and on her house. He even helped build a boat for a man that gave us a place to stay for a week or two. I have pictures of all this. It was the most freeing time of my life, and the reason why is because God was breaking chains for me. And I didn't know it then, but I know it now. The story that I like to tell when we got to Benton, Kentucky, is we were here for a while, and I had to go back to Texas. I had a warrant. I'm not going to lie. I had a warrant. I had to go to jail. I went back to Texas, and I went to jail for 3 months. I got out of jail. I visited my kids. And Judd told me, like I said, I had been saved and I was on dope. And I knew that if I put that needle in my arm and died that minute, I was going to go to hell. But in my heart, I knew that God wasn't going to let me die in that place. But Judd told me one time, my husband told me one time while we were getting high, that he thought that he was Satan. And it's so funny because I cried. He was like, "What are you crying for?" And I said, "Because if you're Satan, I love you too much. And if you're Satan, we're not going to be able to be together forever. Because God's going to call me home one day. And we're not going to be able to be together if you're Satan." Well, then we got here. I went back to Texas, and when I called him one day, I asked him what he was doing. He said he was sitting at a church. And I knew it was time for me to come back to Kentucky. So I got a bus ticket, and I came back to Kentucky. And this is where I've been ever since. He didn't immediately go to church, but he found a couple of pastors at a gym, and he got saved. And then I started going to church, and God did call me back home. And this is my home. And then he showed me all the times that he saved us on that road trip here while he was helping us get clean off the drugs. And it's 2018, and I've been clean this whole time. So there is hope if you know anybody with an addiction, or if you have one yourself. There is hope. If you've ever had an abortion, there is hope. If you've ever been raped, there is hope. And another thing that I'd like to share with people, when I was 12 years old, and I had a friend who was depressed. I watched her kill herself. She cut her wrist, died in my lap. I've been there. I've seen it. There is hope. There's so much dark stuff going on in the world, and I have seen my fair share of it. But there is hope. There's hope in the Lord. There's hope in His Word. Just give it to Him. And if He's doing a work in you, let Him do it. Because everything works out for our good. It truly, truly does. I don't know what He spared me for. I don't even know if it's just for this video to reach a certain amount of people. But if this touches one person and helps one person, then that's all He spared me for. And that's all I'm meant to be here for. But I have shared my testimony with many, many people. And I would like to reach out to the rest of the world and let other people know that there is hope after addiction. 9 years. Mother's Day will be 9 years. Clean and sober and not wanted or craved. That's the work of God. That's not the work of any man. That's not anything that I did. There's nothing in that I did. Yes, I left Texas. Yes, I got in a car and I drove away. But His hand was in it the whole time. Feeding us, putting gas in our car, guiding us, getting us where He wanted us to be. And the man that said he was Satan is now one of the most powerful men of God. And we are married now. Been married for 5 years. And he is the man that would used to kick your door in and take the last $10 you had and your stereo system if you owed somebody some money. Would give you the shirt off of his back today and would be your most loyal friend. It's amazing what God can do. And I just want to share that with the world. And me, I can't say nothing bad about my husband back then because I was twice as bad as he was. I just wasn't as mean about it. I was just a whole lot sneakier. Horrible people. And I look back now and I'm like, God, shouldn't we be punished in some way? But by His grace, I'm delivered and I'm here to share this with you. So I hope that this just touches one person. Me with no makeup, just being obedient. So thank you to all of you who do watch this. And share it with anybody that you do know that might be struggling with any of these same issues.